Yeah, g'day YouTubers, Tinker O'Toole again here with another video. Today we're going to talk about how a chainsaw tooth cuts through timber, the fibres. So typically, if we actually have a look at this picture here displayed, you'll see the fibres all running in the one direction. That's in the direction of the vertical as the tree grows up. Now the fibres can vary in length. Little tiny fibres all packed in, integrated with each other. Now normally on hardwood, your fibres wouldn't be much more than about 0.6 of a millimetre. But on your softwood, they're generally a lot longer, up to 3.5 millimetres in length. And it's with these little short fibres in hardwood that generally make it a lot more dense. So in all your softwoods where the fibres are a lot longer and they're not as compacted, this is typically in your softer woods like birches and pine. So the fibre structure is totally different. Apparently sycamore, a little bit of a twist in it as well, so they're not as straight as a lot of other fibres. Have got a little bit of a twist in it. So all those cellulose fibres that are in a tree, they're all different lengths on different species and different densities, so it's all different. But ultimately the tooth does the same work on the same tree in cross-cutting. Now when we do cross-cut, the actual tooth has a rocking motion, and if we sort of just demonstrate that as the tooth goes around on the bottom of the rail, it has this rocking motion like that. Now the other thing that's interesting is that when a tooth bites into timber, this top plate cutting edge, depending on the angle that you've got on here and depending on the angle that you've got on the side plate, it looks a bit like, looking from this direction, looks like a bit of a spear. So generally this edge here starts to create the chip. It bites into the timber, and with this rocking motion, it lifts it up. But what happens here, this tends to cut through the fibres as well. So the top plate does the chips, lifts the chips up in a position, and the side plate starts to sever those fibres through this rocking motion like this. So apart from having this razor sharp, the side plate must be razor sharp as well. But remember that the raker inhibits how much the tooth can penetrate down into the timber. So we're only talking about this portion of the tooth, and that's why they turn around and say with semi-chisel, when we talk about the working corner, this little point here, this is the most important part. This is the thing that does all the work, especially in full chisel. And that's why it becomes blunt much easier. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. The only way I could sort of demonstrate it a little bit would be that if I've got this round brush, and as the tooth comes in like that, and it lifts up, you tend to get this cutting effect. So that's the way it works with the fibres. Yeah, thousands and thousands of all these little fibres there, all integrated. And as I said, they're all small. They're not just one big length. They're all little. If you look under a microscope or even a very high powerful magnifying glass, you'll see the little fibres. Yeah, they're a little bit hard to see with a naked eye, but they're all joined together. They're all interlocked. And as I said, on some of the trees, the sycamore, they tend to have a bit of a twist in them. They're not just perfectly dead straight. So all these trees are different, even though the chainsaw does the one particular job. So the side plate is probably the least it's sort of understood. People don't realise that without the side plate, you won't sever those fibres. So it must be kept sharp. It's equally important that if the top plate is kept sharp, especially if you're hand filing, that your file sharpens this side plate. Not much work really happens down here. Maybe a little bit, but not much. But most of the action, most of the work is in this little corner here. That's where it all starts to happen. This is the part, it's like if you ever put a shovel into dirt. The shovel goes in and then you pull the shovel back and the shovel will pull the soil out of the hole. So if you've got your two hands, you push it in with your foot, lever it back, and then you've got this nice big clump of dirt on your shovel. So what happens here, the tooth goes right into the timber, bites in, the rocking motion goes like that. It starts to pull out a chip. In most cases, it'll probably remove the chip. If it doesn't remove the chip on the first bite, the tooth behind it will come along and certainly do that. And yeah, you're talking about thousands of cutters that's happening in 1 minute cycle. There's just thousands of teeth going around doing the same thing. So yeah, what doesn't get cut? Yeah. So it's the side plate is very important. The geometry, we won't go into the geometry of that, only to turn around and say that if you look at square ground, it's almost vertical. And if you look at hexa, it's about a 25-degree angle like that. So it's just interesting that you can play around with different angles and get different results, whether it's softwood or hardwood. But that's a different video. Look on my channel. You will find different videos about hexa or geometry. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell.